Hello, my joyful creatives. In our video today, we want to discuss a very important plant, the most useful plant you can ever come across. Listen to this podcast and be blessed.
Imagine a single, drought-resistant tree that can literally physically pull toxic heavy metals out of drinking water.
Right.
While at the exact same time, it's actively rewriting how your cells process sugar.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. I mean, we're talking about a tree that thrives in the absolute most arid, hostile environments on the planet. Yet it contains compounds so powerful they can suppress the genetic switches that cause human inflammation.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Creative Word Power Podcast by Rejoice Aronosacare. Today we are taking a deep dive into, we're calling it the Miracle Tree Unlocked, metabolic health, immunity, and how to use Moringa safely.
And, I think it sounds like a total exaggeration when you stack all those claims up back to...
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like a late-night infomercial.
Right. But what's fascinating here is that the clinical data actually backs it up. Like, entirely. We aren't just talking about some trendy green powder you throw in a smoothie just because a fitness influencer told you to.
Yeah, exactly.
We are talking about a highly complex biological tool. It's been utilized for millennia, and now it's finally being validated by modern pharmacology.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're going to cut straight through the wellness hype, all the marketing, and look at the actual clinical science of Moringa oleifera.
Which is so needed right now.
Because if you are a busy parent, right, trying to optimize your family's nutrition, or maybe you're a health-conscious professional looking for an edge in your metabolic health, you need to know how this stuff actually works inside your body.
Definitely. And you also need to know the boundaries.
Yes. The safety boundaries are huge.
They are very real boundaries for using it because there are strict rules. I mean, if you are pregnant or if you're taking something like thyroid medication, there are very serious protocols you have to follow. You can't just casually consume it.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into the microscopic cellular pathways and all the modern clinical trials, I really want to look at the history because people didn't just stumble upon this tree yesterday.
Oh, far from it. No. To really understand the impact of Moringa oleifera on our modern physiology, you have to look at the historical context.
Right.
This tree is native to the sub-Himalayan regions, so parts of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh.
Okay.
And it grows incredibly fast in depleted, dry soils. And the historical documentation of its use, it goes all the way back to Ayurvedic medicine around 2000 BC.
2,000 years before the Common Era.
Yeah.
That is massive. And the texts from that time claimed this one plant could prevent over 300 different diseases.
Yes, exactly.
Now, obviously, ancient medicine didn't have double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, right?
Yeah.
So when they say 300 diseases, what were they actually observing in these patients?
Well, they were observing a profound systemic effect. In Ayurveda, they actually called Moringa sigru.
C-group,
Ah.
which translates to moves like an arrow.
Exactly. And they named it that because of how rapidly it seemed to act in the body. Ancient healers, I mean, they didn't have the vocabulary of bioavailability or cellular transport mechanisms,
Yep.
but they were very astute observers. They noticed that when they created preparations from the leaves or the seeds, the physiological effects penetrated the tissues with just incredible speed.
It was fast.
It was sharp, direct, and fast-acting. They saw fevers break, they saw joint pain subside, and they saw energy return to malnourished individuals almost immediately.
It's just amazing to think about that intuitive understanding of medicine back then. And it wasn't just a local phenomenon in the Himalayas either. I was reading that the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, they were all deeply invested in this plant too.
Yes, but they were using it a bit differently.
Right. They were using the seeds for something entirely different. They were extracting oil from them.
Yeah, the oil from the moringa seeds, it's often referred to historically as ben oil.
Oil.
Right. And the reason it was an absolute premium commodity in the ancient world comes down to its chemical structure. It is astonishingly stable.
How so?
Well, if you think about ancient Egypt, you have extreme heat, right?
Oh, yeah. Desert heat.
So if you are crafting a highly prized perfume or like a cosmetic skin lotion for royalty, you need a base oil to carry the fragrance.
Right. And if your base oil goes rancid in the desert heat, your luxury perfume suddenly smells like rotting fat, which is not great for a pharaoh.
Precisely. It's ruined. Most plant oils oxidize and spoil really quickly. But Moringa seed oil is highly resistant to oxidative degradation.
Wow.
So it provided this perfectly stable, deeply moisturizing carrier oil. It absorbed into the skin quickly without leaving a heavy residue. It really is a testament to how complex the plant is.
Like, it does everything.
Yeah. The leaves are this nutritional powerhouse, while the seeds yield this chemically robust, almost industrial-grade oil.
Okay, let's focus on those leaves for a minute, because this is where the modern nutritional mathematics really blew my mind.
Oh, the numbers are crazy.
When you look at the breakdown of what is actually inside a moringa leaf,
Right.
it stops looking like a simple vegetable and starts looking like a highly engineered supplement.
The density of the macro and micronutrients is exactly what elevated it from a local remedy to a subject of intense global scrutiny.
I was looking at the breakdown recently, and okay, the leaves contain 27 different vitamins. They have 46 distinct antioxidants. And here's the part that really caught my attention. They contain 9 essential amino acids.
Which is exceptionally rare in the plant kingdom.
Right, because most plant proteins are incomplete, aren't they?
Right.
Like, you have to combine rice and beans or peanut butter and whole wheat just to get a complete amino acid profile.
Exactly. You have to actively pair them.
But Moringa just has them all
Yeah.
ready to go. And when you start comparing it directly to other foods, I mean, analyzing Moringa is like utilizing the produce department for multiplication tables.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really is. The direct comparisons are just staggering.
It has 25 times the iron of spinach,
Yeah.
17 times the calcium of milk,
Mm-hmm.
15 times the potassium of bananas,
Mm-hmm.
and 7 times the vitamin C of oranges.
It's incredible.
And the kicker is that when you take those fresh leaves and naturally dry them into a powder, you are removing all the water weight. So those concentrations become exponentially more intense.
And this is exactly why global organizations like the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the FAO, they view it through a very specific lens.
Right.
They don't look at Moringa as a boutique wellness trend. They classify it officially as a functional food.
Now, what's the strict definition of a functional food in that context? Because, superfood gets thrown around on every single cereal box now.
No, superfood is purely a marketing term. It means nothing.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Functional food is a clinical classification. It means a food that provides a demonstrated medical or health benefit, and that includes the prevention and treatment of disease well beyond just basic nutritional sustenance.
Okay, I see.
In developing nations, particularly in regions facing severe chronic drought and food insecurity, Moringa is deployed as a frontline biological intervention.
Because it grows where literally nothing else will.
Exactly. I mean, imagine a marginal arid environment where your staple crops, corn, wheat, basic vegetables, they simply wither and die due to lack of water.
Right, it's just dust.
The moringa tree thrives there, requires very little water once established, so it provides this hyper-reliable source of intense, high-quality protein, iron, and calcium specifically for vulnerable populations.
That is so important.
It is aggressively used to combat malnutrition in nursing mothers and underweight children. It is quite literally saving lives by providing the building blocks of human tissue in places where those blocks are desperately scarce.
Okay, so the sheer density of the nutrients explains its historical relevance and obviously its importance in global health. But let's bring it back to that busy professional or parent listening to us right now.
Sure.
They aren't facing starvation, thankfully, but they might be facing chronic stress, fatigue, or creeping metabolic issues. To understand why Moringa has exploded in popularity for metabolic longevity, we really need to zoom all the way in.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at the cellular battleground.
This is the pivot from basic nutrition into actual pharmacology, because the phytochemicals in the leaves aren't just passively sitting there providing calories.
Right.
They are actively modulating how your cells communicate with one another, particularly when it comes to immunity and systemic inflammation.
Now, this was the most complex part of the biology for me in the sources. The research highlights 2 major groups of compounds in the leaves flavonoids, specifically things like quercetin and camphorol,
Yes.
and isothiocyanates, like a highly specific one called moringin.
Right.
And apparently these compounds work together to block something called the nuclear translocation of NF-kappa B. Now, I think we need to break that down.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is NF-kappa B, and why on earth do I want its translocation blocked?
All right, let's visualize the inside of a human cell.
Okay.
Deep inside the cell is the nucleus, right? Which is basically the vault that holds your DNA. Outside the nucleus, out in the fluid of the cell, you have various proteins floating around. And one of these is nuclear factor kappa B, or NF-kappa B. Think of it as the master alarm switch for inflammation.
Okay, so it's just sitting there waiting for a threat.
Right. When your body encounters a threat, a bacterial pathogen, a toxin, or even chronic psychological stress, poor diet, lack of sleep, that alarm switch gets flipped.
And then what happens?
When activated, the NF-kappa B physically travels or translocates from the cell fluid directly into the nucleus.
It breaks into the vault.
It enters the vault, and it binds directly to your DNA. And when it binds to the DNA, it turns on specific genes that signal the cell to start mass-producing inflammatory chemicals.
Oh, wow. These are the pro-inflammatory cytokines I was reading about, right?
Yeah.
Things like TNF-alpha, IL-1 beta, and IL-6.
Tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin-1 beta, and interleukin-6.
Yes.
These are the chemical messengers that flood out of the cell and basically tell your entire body to mount a defense.
Like sounding an alarm.
They tell your blood vessels to dilate and become leaky. They tell your tissues to swell up, to heat up, to cause pain so you stop moving an injured area.
And obviously, if I don't know, cut my arm, I want that to happen. I want the immune system to rush in and fix it.
Acute inflammation is a lifesaver. You need it. But the problem in the modern world is that our lifestyle, the stress, processed foods, environmental toxins, it keeps that NF-kappa B switch flipped permanently on.
Oh, so the alarm is always ringing.
We are constantly pumping out low levels of TNF-alpha and IL-6. This chronic low-grade inflammation is the slow-burning fire that is recognized as the root cause of almost every modern metabolic disease.
Like what?
Arthritis, colitis, cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes.
Wow. So where do the Moringa compounds come in? Wait, so these compounds essentially act like a cellular traffic cop, telling inflammation to stop and sugar to slow down.
That is precisely what they do. The flavonoids and isothiocyanates in Moringa, they stand at the literal gates of the cell nucleus. They physically interfere with the signaling pathways that allow NF-kappa B to enter. So if the master switch cannot enter the nucleus, it cannot bind to the DNA.
Oh, that's brilliant.
If it can't bind to the DNA, the cell never receives the blueprint to manufacture all these inflammatory cytokines.
It just shuts down the production line entirely.
At the genetic level, yes. This is why we see such potent, measurable effects in preclinical models of inflammatory conditions.
Right.
You aren't just taking an aspirin to mask the pain of the inflammation. You're delivering plant molecules that literally tell your genes to stop producing the fire in the first place.
That is wild. And understanding that mechanism makes the next part so much clearer, because cooling off that systemic inflammation is really the first step to fixing the metabolism.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about blood sugar. The research breaks down Moringa's impact on blood sugar control into 3 distinct pathways.
Yeah.
It's like a multi-pronged attack. Let's walk through them.
Let's do it.
Pathway number 1 is enzyme inhibition.
Yes, specifically targeting enzymes in your digestive tract called alpha-glucosidase and alpha-amylase.
Okay, so I eat a bowl of pasta. What are those enzymes actually doing to it?
So when you eat complex carbohydrates like that pasta, your body can't absorb a long chain of carbohydrates directly into the bloodstream.
Too big.
Right. It has to break them down. Alpha-amylase in your saliva and alpha-glucosidase in the brush border of your intestines, they are basically molecular scissors.
Okay.
Their entire job is to snip those long, complex carbohydrate chains down into tiny, simple glucose molecules. Once they are snipped down to glucose, they pass rapidly through the intestinal wall and flood into your blood.
Causing a massive blood sugar spike.
Exactly. But moringa leaves contain incredibly high levels of polyphenols, particularly chlorogenic acid.
I've heard of that.
Chlorogenic acid acts as a competitive inhibitor for those molecular scissors. It physically binds to the enzymes, essentially jamming the scissors so they can't snip the carbohydrates as quickly.
So the complex carbs just stay intact longer in the gut. They don't become a massive rush of glucose all at once. It just flatlines the spike.
It dramatically reduces intestinal glucose absorption speed. It stretches out the digestion process, which smooths out the post-meal blood sugar curve.
Wow.
Instead of a sharp mountain peak of glucose that leaves you crashing 2 hours later, you get a gentle rolling hill.
Okay, so that's pathway 1, blocking the sugar at the gut. Pathway number 2 is insulin sensitization. Now, the literature talks about how moringa enhances something called GLUT4 transporter activity.
Yes.
I'm going to try to visualize this. Tell me if I'm off base here.
Go for it.
Imagine your muscle cells and fat cells are houses with locked doors. The glucose is out in the bloodstream, knocking, trying to get in to provide energy. Insulin is the key that unlocks the door. So what is the GLUT4?
The GLUT4 is the actual doorway itself.
Okay.
In a healthy person, insulin turns the key, the GLUT4 doorway opens, and glucose rushes out of the blood and into the muscle to be burned for energy.
Makes sense.
But in someone with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, those cellular locks are jammed.
Oh.
The insulin is turning the key, but the doors just aren't opening properly, so the glucose gets stranded outside in the bloodstream, damaging blood vessels.
So how does Moringa fix a jammed lock?
The bioactive compounds in Moringa don't just grease the locks. They actually promote the translocation and activity of GLUT4.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning they stimulate the cell to bring more of these doorways to the surface of the cell membrane, and they make the existing doorways more responsive to insulin. It's like greasing the hinges and adding extra doors to the house.
That's a great visual.
So the peripheral tissues, your muscles, can suddenly pull glucose out of the blood much, much more efficiently.
It's pulling the sugar out of the traffic jam.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. Okay, so gut absorption is blocked, muscle absorption is enhanced, and then we have pathway number 3, hepatic regulation. The liver.
Yes.
What is the liver doing wrong in a diabetic state?
Well, your liver is your body's glucose reservoir. It stores excess sugar as glycogen, and its job is to trickle that sugar back into the bloodstream when you need energy, like between meals or while you're sleeping.
Right.
But when your metabolism is dysfunctional and your cells are inflamed, the communication breaks down, the liver gets confused.
Confused how?
It thinks you are starving, so it starts dumping massive amounts of stored glucose into the bloodstream, even when your blood sugar is already sky high.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And the research indicates that chlorogenic acid strikes again here, right? It inhibits a specific liver enzyme called hepatic glucose 6-phosphate translocase.
Which is an excessively long biochemical name for the final enzyme responsible for releasing glucose from the liver.
Right.
By inhibiting this specific translocase enzyme, Moringa effectively sends a halt signal to the liver. It stops the liver from dumping excess sugar into an already crowded bloodstream.
This is literally a masterclass in metabolic control. It blocks the sugar from entering the blood from the gut. It forces the cellular doors open to push sugar into the muscles, and it orders the liver to stop adding more sugar to the pile. A perfectly synchronized 3-pronged attack.
It's elegant.
But I want to push back a little here. It's one thing to understand the mechanism in a petri dish or, a rat model. What does this actually look like in a human being? I know there was a recent clinical trial.
Yes, a randomized controlled trial published in 2025. And this is where the biochemistry translates into tangible clinical reality. They took adult patients with diagnosed type 2 diabetes, and they gave them 8 grams a day of Moringa leaf powder for 12 weeks.
Wait, 8 grams? That's just over a tablespoon of dried leaf powder a day. And what happened?
After 12 weeks, the patients consuming the Moringa saw their fasting blood glucose drop by a massive negative 14.6 milli-GDL compared to the control group.
14 points. Come on. Are we sure that wasn't just them changing their diet? Did the research just control for lifestyle?
They did. This was compared to a control group maintaining their standard baseline care. A 14.6 milli-GDL drop in fasting glucose is a highly significant clinical outcome for a single botanical intervention.
That's huge.
Furthermore, the patients also exhibited improved lipid profiles. Their cholesterol numbers trended in a healthier direction, which makes sense given that we are cooling off systemic inflammation and improving liver function.
That is incredible. But let's be responsible here. I don't want anyone listening to think they can just throw away their metformin and eat a spoonful of green powder.
No, definitely not.
Because the literature is very clear that some studies show more minimal effects, especially when looking at long-term markers like hemoglobin A1C, right? Particularly if patients are already on heavy pharmaceutical interventions like sulfonylureas.
This raises an important question about the nature of phytomedicine versus pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Moringa is a metabolic modulator. It is not an aggressive synthetic hypoglycemic drug. If a patient is taking a drug like a sulfonylurea, which literally forces the pancreas to pump out more insulin regardless of what you eat, the drug is driving the blood sugar down with a sledgehammer.
Okay.
The subtle modulating effects of Moringa might be masked in the long-term A1C averages, even if it is still helping to blunt post-meal spikes.
So it's not a sledgehammer. It's a thermostat.
The thermostat is a perfect analogy. And to prove that it acts as a thermostat, we look at the data on healthy individuals.
What happens with them?
If a non-diabetic person, someone with normal, healthy blood sugar control, consumes 8 grams of Moringa, they do not experience a continuous, dangerous drop in blood glucose.
Oh, really?
They don't become hypoglycemic from eating it, Their bodies extract the nutrients, but the enzymatic pathways we discussed only activate to the extent that balance needs restoring.
Oh, it reads the room.
It reads the room. It restores homeostasis. It doesn't artificially crash the system.
Okay, before we move away from the clinical trials on inflammation, I saw one other finding that completely surprised me. Asthma.
Yes.
There was a clinical trial where patients with bronchial asthma took 3 grams of Moringa twice daily, so 6 grams total for 3 weeks. And they saw a significant reduction in asthma severity and measurably improved lung function.
Which ties seamlessly back to the NF-kappa B master switch we discussed earlier.
How so?
Asthma is not just a mechanical breathing issue. It is fundamentally an inflammatory disease of the airways. The bronchial tubes swell up and constrict because they're flooded with pro-inflammatory cytokines.
The exact same cytokines the Moringa compounds block at the genetic level.
Precisely. By shutting down that nuclear translocation and reducing the production of TNF-alpha and IL-6, Moringa is systemically cooling the inflammation that triggers the asthmatic constriction. The airways relax because the cellular fire alarm has been turned off.
It is so deeply interconnected. Okay, so we've established how this plant cleans up the chaotic inflammation and the metabolic traffic jams inside our cells. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, definitely.
Because Moringa's most universally recognized miracle property might actually be its ability to physically clean up our external environment, and then by extension, detoxify heavy metal threats from the human body. Let's talk about the antibacterial arsenal and water purification.
This is one of the most elegant examples of natural biological engineering you will ever see.
I mean, it sounds like magic.
It does. In many rural or developing areas around the world, people rely on surface water for drinking. This water is often highly turbid.
Turbid meaning cloudy, muddy, filled with suspended particles.
Yes. It is teeming with silt, clay, organic matter, and most dangerously, high loads of bacteria and viruses. Now, from a physics standpoint, those tiny particles of dirt and the bacteria generally carry a negative electrical charge.
Okay, and because they are all negatively charged, they repel each other.
Yeah.
Like two negative ends of a magnet.
Exactly. Because they repel each other, they refuse to clump together. They stay permanently suspended in the water column, making it cloudy and highly dangerous to consume.
Right.
But if you take dried moringa seeds, crush them into a powder, and mix them into that turbid water.
You unleash the flow protein.
Yes. The seeds contain a specific cationic protein called the Moringa oleifera cationic protein, or MOCP. Cationic means it carries a strong positive charge.
So you introduce a massive amount of positively charged proteins into a soup of negatively charged dirt and bacteria. I remember basic physics. Opposites attract.
They attract violently. The positively charged Moringa proteins act like powerful molecular magnets. They seek out and bind tightly to the negatively charged clay, the organic matter, and the bacterial cell walls.
Wow.
This instantly neutralizes the electrostatic repulsion that was keeping everything suspended.
The research calls this process flocculation.
Correct. Once the negative charges are neutralized, all these tiny particles start colliding and clumping together into larger, heavier, visible masses called flocks.
Oh, I see.
And because they are now heavy, gravity takes over. The flocks sink rapidly to the bottom of the container. Within an hour or two, the water above them is left clear, with up to a 90 to 99% reduction in bacterial load.
That is just, it's breathtaking that a seed can do that. It literally pulls the dirt and the disease out of the water.
It's a vital point-of-use water treatment technology that doesn't require electricity, expensive filtration membranes, or synthetic chemicals like aluminum sulfate.
But it gets even more intense. It's not just trapping the bacteria in the clumps, right?
No, it's not.
The researchers used cryogenic electron microscopy to look at what was happening on a microscopic level. It's not a passive trap. It's an active antibacterial weapon. They describe a mechanism called membrane fusion. What is the seed protein actually doing to the bacteria?
Well, when you look at it under an electron microscope, it looks like a battlefield. When that MOCP protein binds to the cell wall of a dangerous pathogen like Escherichia coli or Staphylococcus aureus, it doesn't just hold it there gently. The protein interacts aggressively with the lipid bilayer of the bacterial cell membrane. It physically destabilizes the structure of the wall.
He tears it open.
It induces what's called a membrane fusion, which effectively rips microscopic holes in the bacterial cell wall. The integrity of the bacteria is compromised. It begins to leak its intracellular contents, and it rapidly dies.
Wow.
It is physically destroying the pathogens, not just sweeping them under the road.
So you have a single tree that acts as a municipal water treatment plant and a broad-spectrum antibacterial agent that handles the external environment. But how does this detoxifying power translate to the human body? The clinical data spends a lot of time on heavy metal chelation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of modern health, the environment we live in is increasingly unavoidably contaminated.
Sad but true.
We are constantly exposed to trace amounts of heavy metals like lead, cadmium, arsenic, and mercury. They are in the soil our food grows in, the water we drink, and the air we breathe.
And our bodies don't know what to do with them.
No, they don't. These heavy metals accumulate over decades in our organs, particularly the liver, kidneys, and brain. And once lodged in the tissues, they generate massive, continuous amounts of oxidative stress.
They create those reactive oxygen species, the free radicals.
Yes. Free radicals are unstable molecules that rip electrons away from your healthy cells, damaging your DNA and cellular structures. It accelerates aging and drives disease.
Right.
But just as those Moringa proteins bind to contaminants in a bucket of muddy water, the bioactive compounds in the Moringa leaves act as heavy metal chelators inside the human bloodstream.
A chelator is essentially a chemical claw, right?
That's a great visual. Moringa is rich in phytates, flavonoids, and phenolic acids. These specific molecules have molecular structures that act like claws. They can physically grasp onto toxic heavy metal ions circulating in the blood or lodged in tissues.
And then what?
Once the claw binds to the metal, it neutralizes the metal's reactivity. It stops it from causing oxidative damage, and it makes the metal water-soluble so that it can be transported to the liver and kidneys.
And then safely flushed out of the body through urine or bile.
Exactly. But here is the brilliant part of the design. The process of the liver processing and flushing heavy metals is stressful.
I can imagine.
It naturally generates a storm of free radicals in the liver. But because Moringa is also packed with those 46 antioxidants, specifically quercetin and chlorogenic acid, it provides its own built-in shield.
Oh, the claws grab the metal, the liver processes it, and the antioxidants neutralize the collateral damage.
It protects the liver cells from damage while the detoxification is happening. It supports and nourishes the organ pathways, rather than just acting as a harsh standalone chemical flush that leaves you depleted.
It's an incredibly sophisticated, comprehensive defense system. But, and this is a massive but, this brings us to a very serious pivot in our conversation today. Because Moringa is such an effective molecular sponge, because it is a bioaccumulator that effortlessly absorbs heavy metals from its environment, this exact superpower can become a dangerous double-edged sword if you aren't paying attention.
That is a critical point that cannot be overstated. A plant's ability to absorb elements from the soil is indiscriminate.
Right?
The Moringa tree does not know the difference between absorbing healthy zinc and absorbing toxic lead. If a tree is cultivated in soil that is heavily contaminated with industrial runoff, lead, or arsenic, the roots will diligently absorb those heavy metals and store them directly in the leaves.
Which means if I go online and buy like a cheap Moringa powder from a questionable source and I consume those leaves, I'm actively ingesting the exact heavy metals I'm trying to detoxify.
You are poisoning yourself under the guise of wellness.
Man. So this moves us directly into the safety protocol, the shopping guide, and the critical warnings. Let's start with how to actually shop for this safely. If I'm looking for Moringa powder, what are the non-negotiable things I need to look for on the label?
You cannot simply buy the cheapest bag on the internet. Because of the bioaccumulation risk, you must prioritize radical transparency and quality control. You are looking for proof of third-party lab testing.
Certifications from independent organizations like NSF International or the United States Pharmacopoeia USP?
Yes. Those independent bodies test the final packaged product to ensure it is completely free from dangerous levels of heavy metals, pesticides, and microbial pathogens.
Okay.
Ideally, you want to purchase from a brand that will willingly provide a certificate of analysis or a COA upon request.
What exactly am I looking for on a COA?
A certificate of analysis is a lab document proving that their specific current batch of powder meets the strict safety thresholds for heavy metals established by the World Health Organization.
Okay, that makes sense.
It will show the exact parts per million of lead, cadmium, and arsenic. If a company ignores your email or refuses to show you their lab results, walk away. Do not buy their product.
Okay, third-party testing is rule number 1. What about the processing itself? Does it matter how the leaves are turned into powder?
Cultivation and processing are vital for preserving all those delicate antioxidants we just spent 20 minutes talking about. You want Moringa that specifically states it is shade-dried.
Historically, they said it was harvested by moonlight, which sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, but there is actually hard photochemistry behind it.
There is. Direct, intense ultraviolet sunlight rapidly degrades fragile vitamins and antioxidants, particularly the massive vitamin A and vitamin C content found in the fresh leaves. By harvesting away from the peak sun and drying the leaves slowly in the shade, the entire nutritional profile is preserved.
And I assume that also helps with shelf life. How long does this stuff last in the pantry?
Once it is properly shade-dried and powdered, it's remarkably stable. Keep it in an airtight container in a cool, dark place, and it doesn't spoil easily. It becomes an excellent, long-lasting pantry staple that retains its potency for months.
All right, so we found our high-quality, shade-dried, verified safe Moringa powder. Now we need to talk about who should absolutely not take it without strict, direct medical supervision.
Very important.
There are 2 critical warnings here that we need to emphasize. Critical warning number 1 involves pregnancy.
This is paramount. Expectant mothers must be incredibly meticulously careful with Moringa oleifera.
The literature is very explicit about this. The roots, the root bark, and the flowers of the tree contain highly toxic chemicals. One of them is an alkaloid called spirochin. What is spirochin doing to the body?
Spirochin and other active alkaloids found concentrated in the roots and bark are potent neurotoxins and stimulants.
Okay.
In the context of pregnancy, these specific compounds act as powerful abortifacients.
Wow.
They can cause violent, unpredictable uterine contractions, which can readily lead to a miscarriage. Under absolutely no circumstances should a pregnant woman ever consume moringa root, bark, or flower extracts.
That is terrifying. But what about the leaves? We've been talking about the leaves this whole time. Are they safe?
The leaves have a completely different chemical profile than the roots. However, even with the leaves, the clinical consensus requires extreme caution.
Tell me more.
Moringa leaves are generally considered safe, but only during the 2nd and 3rd trimesters of pregnancy, and the dosage must be strictly, rigidly capped.
What is the cap?
The absolute maximum is 2 grams of leaf powder daily. That is roughly half a teaspoon.
That's barely anything.
And even then, it should only be consumed under the direct supervision and approval of an obstetrician. It can be a phenomenal source of bioavailable iron and calcium late in pregnancy when the mother's reserves are depleted, but the boundaries are absolute.
I have to ask, if it's just a natural leafy green, why does a pregnant mother need to be so incredibly cautious? I mean, nobody tells you to limit your spinach intake to half a teaspoon. Nobody worries about a kale overdose.
This raises an important question, and honestly, it addresses one of the most dangerous misconceptions in the modern wellness space.
Yeah?
People mistakenly equate natural or plant-based with harmless. But moringa is not just a salad green, it is a profound phytomedicine.
The concentration is the difference.
Exactly. The concentration of active alkaloids, glucosinolates, and isothiocyanates in moringa is exponentially higher than what you find in a standard grocery store vegetable.
Right.
You are consuming biologically active compounds that fundamentally alter cellular function, gene expression, and metabolic pathways. That demands immense respect and precise dosing, particularly when a fetus is developing.
That is such a crucial distinction. Phytomedicine versus simple vegetable. Treat it with respect. Which brings us to critical warning number 2, medications. Because we just spent the first half of this discussion detailing exactly how effectively moringa lowers blood sugar and lowers blood pressure. It stands to reason that combining it with synthetic drugs that do the exact same thing could be a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. In pharmacology, this is known as a synergistic or additive effect.
Okay.
Let's say you have type 2 diabetes and your endocrinologist has prescribed a medication like metformin, an SGLT2 inhibitor, or a sulfonylurea. Those pharmaceutical drugs are mathematically calibrated to bring your specific blood sugar down to a specific target range.
Right. And if you then add a heavy dose of moringa on top of that, a plant that we know actively inhibits carbohydrate absorption in the gut, forces open the GLUT4 doorways in the muscles, and shuts down glucose production in the liver.
You risk driving your blood sugar too low too fast.
That makes sense.
That state is called hypoglycemia, and it is a medical emergency. It causes severe dizziness, confusion, fainting, and can be life-threatening.
Wow.
The exact same logic applies to blood pressure. Moringa naturally relaxes the blood vessels and has mild hypertensive effects. If you layer that on top of prescription antihypertension drugs, your blood pressure could bottom out, causing you to pass out when you stand up.
Okay, so if you are on metabolic meds, You must talk to your doctor to adjust your dosages before adding Moringa.
Unconditionally.
There was one more specific medication mentioned in the clinical data that surprised me. Thyroid medication, specifically levothyroxine. What's the interaction there?
While some preliminary studies suggest the antioxidants in Moringa can support overall thyroid gland health, the active phytochemicals in the plant can actively interfere with the absorption or the metabolic half-life of synthetic thyroid hormones like levothyroxine.
So it blocks the drug from working.
It can alter how much of the drug actually makes it into your bloodstream. If you are managing hypothyroidism with medication, your doctor has carefully dialed in your microgram dosage to keep your hormones perfectly balanced.
Right.
Adding a potent phytomedicine like Moringa could block absorption and throw your carefully calibrated hormone levels into chaos, leading to extreme fatigue or hyperthyroid symptoms. You must consult your endocrinologist.
Okay. The safety parameters are clearly set. No roots or bark ever, strict limits in late pregnancy, and mandatory doctor consultations if you are on metabolic, blood pressure, or thyroid meds.
Exactly.
Let's move into the practical application for everyone else. For the busy professional, the parent trying to keep their family healthy, the person who falls safely into the usage category, how exactly do we integrate this into a hectic daily routine?
Good question.
Because everything we've read is very clear that you do not just rip open the bag and start scooping tablespoons of this stuff into your mouth.
No, you absolutely do not. The key to successful, sustainable integration is understanding your body's dosage thresholds and adaptation phase.
It makes me think of breaking in a new pair of hiking boots.
Yeah.
You don't buy stiff leather boots and run a marathon on day one. You wear them around the house, you let the leather soften, you let your feet adjust. Otherwise, you end up with blisters and misery.
That is a perfect analogy. Your gastrointestinal tract needs time to adapt to this new input.
Right.
Moringa powder is incredibly dense in insoluble fiber, which alone can speed up digestion. But more importantly, it contains all those active phytochemicals, the quercetin, the chlorogenic acid, that initiate deep cellular detoxification processes in the liver and the gut.
Okay.
If you overwhelm the system with a massive dose on day one, your body will react aggressively to clear it out.
The dreaded detox symptoms, which usually means running to the bathroom.
Yes. It usually manifests as temporary loose stools, cramping, or mild gastrointestinal discomfort.
And nobody wants to deal with that during a 9 a.m. strategy meeting or while wrangling toddlers. So how do we avoid it? What is the beginner dose?
A beginner should start with only 14 to 12 of a teaspoon daily. That is a tiny amount, just 1 to 2 grams.
Just a sprinkle.
Exactly. This is the adaptation phase. It allows your gut microbiome to adjust to the influx of new fiber and compounds. You stay at this dose for about a week.
Okay.
Once your body is completely accustomed to it and you have zero digestive issues, you can slowly move up to the maintenance dose.
What is the target maintenance dose for a healthy adult?
The general clinical consensus for a maintenance dose is 1 to 2 teaspoons daily. That equates to roughly 3 to 6 grams.
Okay.
This is the sweet spot. At this level, you are receiving the measurable clinical benefits, the potent antioxidant support, the baseline inflammatory modulation, the blood sugar balancing without overwhelming your digestive tract.
Okay, but what if I really want to push the therapeutic benefits? What is the absolute upper limit?
The safely established upper limit for daily consumption is 1 tablespoon, which is about 10 grams. But there is a very, very important rule if you are pushing into that higher therapeutic range.
What's the rule?
You must split the dose.
Right. You don't drop a whole tablespoon into one smoothie. You put a teaspoon in your morning shake and maybe stir another teaspoon into a bowl of soup at dinner.
Precisely. Spreading the intake throughout the day ensures steady, manageable absorption in the intestines and completely minimizes the risk of gastrointestinal distress. It keeps the levels of active compounds stable in your bloodstream rather than spiking them all at once.
Okay, so we have the precise dosing schedule down. But the nutritional science gets even more granular. It's not just about how much you eat, it's about how you meet it.
Oh, absolutely. Food combinations are key.
The biochemistry outlines specific rules for maximizing nutrient absorption by pairing it with the right foods. Let's go through these food combos because this is where the practical kitchen application really shines. Rule number 1, pair Moringa with vitamin C. Wow.
This comes down entirely to iron absorption. As we noted earlier, Moringa is a powerhouse, boasting 25 times the iron of spinach.
Right.
However, there is a catch. Plant-based iron is what we call non-home iron.
As opposed to heme iron, which comes from blood and animal products like a steak or liver.
Correct. The human digestive tract is highly efficient at absorbing heme iron from meat. It is very inefficient at absorbing non-Hem iron from plants. Most of it just passes right through you unabsorbed.
So how does vitamin C fix that?
Ascorbic acid vitamin C is a powerful reducing agent. When you consume non-Hem iron alongside a rich source of vitamin C, the acid chemically alters the iron molecules in your gut.
Interesting.
It converts them into a form that is significantly easier for your intestinal cells to grab onto and absorb into the bloodstream. It acts as a massive multiplier for the iron benefits.
So practically speaking, if I'm making a green smoothie with a teaspoon of moringa, I need to squeeze a quarter of a fresh lemon into it, or throw in a handful of strawberries or a slice of orange?
Exactly. That simple addition ensures you actually absorb the iron you are consuming.
That is a phenomenal tip. Rule number 2, pair it with healthy fats.
Moringa is loaded with fat-soluble vitamins, particularly the massive amounts of vitamin A, beta-carotene, and vitamin E.
Okay.
The term fat-soluble is literal. Your body physically cannot transport or absorb these vitamins through the intestinal wall unless there is dietary fat present in the digestive tract at the exact same time.
Oh, so if I mix a teaspoon of moringa into a glass of plain ice water and drink it on an empty stomach before my workout,
You are wasting almost all of those specific fat-soluble vitamins. They will just pass through your system. To extract and utilize those nutrients, you must mix the powder into something that contains healthy fats.
so blending it into a smoothie that has half an avocado,
Yeah.
stirring it into a bowl of full-fat Greek yogurt, mixing it with a tablespoon of almond butter, or drizzling olive oil over it if it's in a soup.
Exactly. The fat acts as the vehicle to carry those specific vitamins into your bloodstream.
Rule number 3 is a warning. Do not mix moringa with coffee or tea. This one hurts because I love drinking my supplements with my morning coffee.
Yeah, a lot of people do, but this is the exact flip side of the vitamin C rule. Coffee, black tea, and green tea contain high levels of compounds called tannins and polyphenols.
Right.
While healthy on their own, tannins are notorious for binding fiercely to non-Hem iron in the digestive tract. They create large, complex molecules that your body cannot absorb.
So they essentially lock the iron up and throw away the key.
Yes. If you swallow your moringa powder and wash it down with a hot cup of black tea or coffee, you are actively neutralizing and blocking a significant portion of its nutritional value, particularly the iron and calcium.
Keep the moringa away from the morning brew. Space them out by an hour or two. Got it. And the final rule, do not boil it.
Heat is the enemy of delicate phytochemicals. Many vitamins, particularly vitamin C, are highly heat sensitive. While moringa is robust enough to be cooked in traditional dishes, aggressively boiling the powder for 20 minutes will rapidly degrade its vitamin profile and dull its vibrant green color and flavor.
So if I'm making a hot meal like a stew or a pasta sauce, how do I add it?
You wait until the dish is entirely fully cooked. Take the pot off the stove, remove it from the direct heat, and then stir the moringa powder in right before you serve it. The residual heat will blend the flavors beautifully without destroying the fragile molecular structure.
It makes total sense. Speaking of blending flavors, what does this stuff actually taste like? We've talked about it like it's a pill, but it's a food. The descriptions say it's earthy, slightly peppery, and very similar to matcha green tea or concentrated spinach.
It definitely has a distinctly green, vegetal flavor profile. It is not sweet. If you mix it into plain water, it can taste quite grassy and intense, which is why most people prefer to mask or integrate the flavor.
So how do cultures that have been eating this for centuries actually prepare it? The culinary history here is just as rich as the medical history.
Oh, absolutely.
I was looking at some traditional recipes. In the Philippines, they utilize the fresh leaves to make something called sabaw sakalamungay, which translates to a simple, incredibly nourishing broth, usually made with fish, ginger, and handfuls of fresh moringa leaves.
And if you look closely at that recipe, it perfectly aligns with the scientific rules we just established.
Really?
Yeah. The fish provides the fat to absorb the vitamin A. The broth is warm, but the leaves are added at the very end so they aren't boiled to death. It's intuitive nutritional science.
In Thailand, they use it in a dish called kang som, which is a spicy, sour curry. And in Myanmar, the Burmese use the long drumstick seed pods, which are chopped up like green beans in sour soups. The sourness usually comes from tamarind or lime juice.
Which, again, provides the massive hit of vitamin C required to absorb all the iron from the pods and leaves. It is fascinating how traditional culinary practices naturally optimize bioavailability long before we had microscopes to explain why.
It really is.
Yeah.
But for the modern busy parent listening to you right now, who doesn't have time to source fresh drumstick pods and make a traditional Burmese sour soup on a Tuesday night, What is the easiest way to get this into a family's diet?
The path of least resistance is usually a morning green smoothie. You can easily mask the slightly grassy flavor by blending it with a sweet fruit like mango or pineapple.
Okay.
You add a source of fat, like a spoonful of almond butter or half an avocado to capture the fat-soluble vitamins, and you add a squeeze of fresh lemon juice for the iron absorption. It takes 3 minutes and delivers a profound metabolic payload.
And for dinner, I know getting kids to eat something bright green can be a negotiation.
Because consistency matters far more than volume, your goal isn't to force them to eat a tablespoon. Hiding just a single teaspoon in a large family meal is highly effective.
Oh, that's smart.
You can stir a teaspoon of Moringa powder into a family-sized batch of marinara sauce just after taking it off the heat right before tossing it with spaghetti. The oregano and garlic completely hide the earthy flavor, and the olive oil in the sauce provides the fat.
Or fold it into a pot of lentil dal or a robust beef stew.
Exactly. It provides a massive baseline of essential nutrition, iron, and anti-inflammatory compounds for the whole family without overwhelming their palate or their digestion. It's about building a sustainable, effortless daily habit.
We have covered an unbelievable amount of ground today. We have journeyed from 2000 BC Ayurveda and the luxury perfume factories of ancient Egypt straight through the microscopic cellular pathways of the NF-kappa B inflammatory switch and the GLUT4 glucose doorways.
It's a lot.
It is. We've seen how the MOCP protein acts as an electrostatic magnet to physically purify contaminated drinking water, and we've mapped out the absolute necessity of strict, precise dosing protocols for pregnant mothers and those on thyroid medications. It is a staggering amount of biological action for one single plant.
It is staggering, but I think it serves as a powerful reminder of why we cannot simply dismiss ancient traditional medicine as folklore.
Right.
Nor can we blindly accept modern wellness marketing trends without scrutiny. We have to do the rigorous work to understand the actual mechanisms at play. And when we do that work, we find that the miracle isn't magic. It is incredibly sophisticated, highly measurable biochemistry.
And that specific biochemistry is powerful enough to be officially classified as a functional tool against global malnutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this all mean? As we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final lingering concept from all of this research that I want you to consider.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to mull over long after you finish listening to us today.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to the very environment where this tree grows.
It is a profound thought regarding resilience in biology.
Exactly. Think about where the Moringa oleifera tree thrives.
Mm-hmm.
It grows specifically in arid, marginal soils. Places where the earth is dry, cracked, depleted, and hostile. It grows vigorously where our staple crops simply wither and die. And while it grows in these incredibly harsh, unforgiving conditions, its biological engine is working overtime. The data shows it actively absorbs 20 to 50 times more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere than standard types of vegetation.
It is not just a nutrient source. It is a massive, highly efficient environmental carbon sink.
So here is the question for you to take with you today. If this one incredibly resilient, drought-proof tree growing in the dust holds the molecular keys to physically purifying our contaminated drinking water, chelating heavy metals from our organs, and balancing our complex metabolic health at a genetic level, what other ignored, marginalized plants are sitting out there in the desert right now?
Yeah.
What other weeds have we overlooked that are just waiting to be studied, holding the biochemical solutions to our greatest climate and health crises?
It really makes you wonder what else is hiding in plain sight, just waiting for modern science to finally catch up to ancient wisdom.
It certainly does. Thank you all for joining us on this extensive, microscopic journey for the Creative Word Power podcast. Be sure to check the show notes for a full recap of the specific dosage thresholds, the crucial food pairing rules, and the vital safety protocols we discussed today. Until next time, stay curious, respect the science, and stay informed.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. God bless you.